Superhot is the most innovative shooter I've played in years. That's how all the reviews of this game start, right? I mean, I'm not sure, I only watched like 2, and that's after I'd already played the game. And I think 1 didn't even go with that. I mean, it's not entirely true for a start. There are first-person shooters in recent years that don't have any shooting at all. I mean, that's pretty out there. This one's fun though, so it has that going for it. So, it all starts with some bloke sat at their computer. His friend recommends a game to him, so he downloads it and starts playing. It starts with some bloke sat at their computer. His friend recommends a game to him, so he downloads it and starts playing. And for a while, we're having an equal amount of fun.
Superhot.
Even if he questions it a lot more than I do. Mate, this is one of the only other games you have on your computer. You really can't be this hung up on plot. For once, I'm not going to spoil the whole plot. Suffice to say that playing Superhot does not go terribly well for that guy. He gets addicted to the game and the game bites back. At one point disabling the escape key to keep him locked in. Alt F4 still worked, however, and that just shattered my immersion, I've got to say. On the whole, I didn't really care for the plot that much. I didn't dislike it. Its minimalistic way of delivering it and the twists and turns, they weren't boring me, but they weren't dragging me in either. I spent basically every story segment thinking, yeah, come on, get on with it, and to the game's credit, it kept these parts short. Really? It's just killing red dudes. That's what I'm here for. Or maybe there's something deeper. I did enjoy the ending, at least. It's the most ballsy ending this game could have possibly had. It's strong. Granted, there is a part of me that liked the more obvious sleeper agent vibe of the prototype, cheesiness of the acting included, but it would have been more restrictive and a lot less original, so I'm not exactly upset about that not happening. Superhot's core mechanic is that time moves when you move. Hang on, shit, that's true of every game. Alright, time also moves a lot less when you don't. You can take in the sights, check your six, line up a shot, basically evaluate. It is the best form of turn-based combat I've ever played. Not only allowing for the foresight and planning enabled by turn-based games, but requiring the skill and dexterity to pull those plans off. It's a bit easier than usual to be dexterous when you've got all the time in the world to line up attacks, but you know, you've also got to not get shot. Other than that, we've got the basic shooter controls, move around, jump up and over obstacles, shoot guns. No reloading though, just launch the guns at foes when they're dry. And you've only got one hit point, which, well, save for when you're punching or throwing weapons at enemies, is true of them as well. So, one hit point, outnumbered and outgunned, and your ace in the hole is truly inhuman reflexes. First off, the weapons. There are 3 guns, 3 melee weapons, and a whole bunch of throwable objects littered around. The smaller differences in how guns are balanced against one another are exaggerated here by the nature of the game. The pistol is accurate and has plentiful ammo, but it's not particularly fast firing. Honestly, this is the first game where weapon cycling has been a major consideration for me. The crosshair even rotates and clicks into place so you know how long you have to wait before your next shot. The shotgun is slow as hell, and honestly, annoyingly inaccurate. The scatter is completely unpredictable. But it can clean house when enemies bunch up and the shotgun's in a good mood, and it means you have to lead your shots a lot less. Which again, like cycling, is an actual consideration. You have to lead shots carefully, and pulling off long shots is very rewarding. The assault rifle fires in bursts, forcing you into a faster speed for longer, but in return you can put down decently accurate fire in quantity and try and hit multiple foes at once. Save for the assault rifle, the weapon cycling feels like a very long time, and when dealing with multiple foes or going for time, it's sometimes faster to actually just throw your gun away, sometimes at enemies, and go for a fresh weapon to save time. It's incredibly cool and actually a legitimately practical move to trade weapons often, sometimes catching them out of the air as they fly from a dead enemy's grasp, only to keep firing. Throwing weapons in general are great, useful for stunning enemies to close the gap, turning empty guns into painful missiles. It looks fucking nuts on the replays. The melee weapons consist of a katana, a baseball bat, a lead pipe, and on one level exclusively, I found a shovel. They're all one-hit kills and virtually identical, kinda slow but longer reach than the 3-hit kill bare hands, and they each break after a few swings. And then we have the katana, which is faster, better range, never breaks, and when thrown not only kills enemies, but can bloody pierce through them, killing multiple. The small weapon pool is something I'm ultimately ambivalent about. The weapons are all incredibly distinct from one another, Not only do they each fulfill distinct roles and have notable weaknesses and strengths, but the limited ammo and practicality of throwing weapons away often forces you to swap and scrounge all the time. Even throwing weapons feel different. Smaller items fly faster and further, while the larger stuff can splinter and hit multiple foes more easily. But the weapon choices all feel very safe, and considering how experimental the game already is, that might be wise, but come on, at least one kind of explosive or something. I love good dodge and defense mechanics. Beyond landing blows, nothing is greater than just narrowly avoiding danger. Hell, in some ways, dodging blows is more rewarding for me than landing them. Dodging is looking at enemy weapons to see where they're pointing, tracking bullet trails, and moving out of the way accordingly, narrowly avoiding death all the way. You can also bait friendly fire, and it's somewhat tricky as the enemy AI actually does a pretty good job firing around allies, which, considering the actual use of projectiles, that's really impressive. And it makes pulling off friendly fire a genuine feat rather than just another enemy fuck-up. Probably my favourite thing in this game is dodging close calls, and one thing in particular that makes it so much more rewarding: turning actually makes you a thinner target, so you can lean away from shots just to make up those mere inches and not die. I have dodged through shotgun blasts and recovered knowing this. I mean, that's not all, of course. There are so many little extras that this game doesn't explicitly tell you, only discovered haphazardly or by getting experimental. I mean, things like shooting enemy bullets to block them. How about throwing your whole gun in the way? This works both ways though. I mean, you have to throw things in the hopes that enemies won't accidentally blast them out of the air. I mean, hell, if you've got a katana, you can slice bullets out of thin air. Doesn't quite go as well when you throw it. Shit. You can bloody Goomba stomp enemies. The aiming on this is really finicky, but it can be done, and it's definitely helped by the fact that holding down jump whilst in the air slows time right back down, and now you've got a great degree of mid-air control to boot. I enjoy this, I spam it a lot, but I've got to say, it's insanely overpowered. The trade-off for fast movement in this game is that enemies and bullets are now at normal speed. Jumping everywhere in slow motion is basically the best of both worlds. You've got the movement necessary to not get hit, and the slow motion to line up shots and take stock. Plus, enemies just lose their bloody heads when it comes to trying to shoot down airborne targets. Yet, I still did spam it because of my need in first-person games to jump all over the place. I'd be sad if it were gone, since shooting stuff while in the air is a lot cooler than when on the ground. You can punch out glass panes and other environmental bits and bobs to shatter them and throw enemies off. Rarely comes up, but it's just another tool in a surprisingly good arsenal. Something that's definitely a bit more bizarre is what I like to call bullet punching. I'm not sure why, it's probably from watching Epo. If you punch someone at the exact moment they fire their gun, it's an instant kill, and the bullet... I don't know, they're dead, okay? The bullet's not there anymore. If you mess that timing up though, well, now you're directly in front of a fired gun, which is very rarely a good thing. But this small ability does represent one of my favourite things about Superhot. Timing still matters. When you attack by firing a gun, punching, throwing, whatever, time momentarily speeds up to match your attack. So picking moments to go on the offensive is very important, as a bullet may just be creeping up on you. It encourages a good deal of running and gunning, or keeping enemies stunned with throwing weapons while you look for a moment to actually land a killer blow. It's like spinning murderous plates. Also, looking around counts as movement, albeit slower than actually moving, but it means that taking in your surroundings counts as an action. I most often died because I'd get overconfident and not check around often enough. And I mean, that also makes the replays look worse, and you can't have that. The only special ability that you unlock is hot switching. It's essentially a body swap that removes your old form from play and kills an enemy freely. Much like slow motion jumping, it's basically overpowered, yet I don't often use it, even in situations where it would save me. I can't quite rationalise this myself. The best I can offer is because it doesn't gel with the slow motion mechanics that govern everything else. The only replacement I could think of would be an ability where you're completely immune from the passage of time for a few seconds, even whilst moving and attacking, letting you essentially get out of dodge or kill a few enemies before time resumes. Hot Switch is basically a get out of jail free button with a very fast cooldown. That isn't to say it didn't completely mesh with the other mechanics. I mean, you can use it to pass yourself weapons, for instance. But otherwise, it's a quick relocate and a free kill button. There are no requirements like an enemy needing to be stunned or anything, it's as simple as pointing and clicking. Well, okay, it's hitting the E key, but you get the point. Superhot has very simple, easy to grasp mechanics. You can pick it up and get going quickly. Yet it's also got a good suite of tools and abilities, so that in any moment you have tons of options available. The simple stage design is also great for this. They're littered with pillars to block sightlines, things to jump on and over, little hidden routes and alcoves, and secrets. The same tiny stage can play out in so many different ways. It's not just that the mechanics are sound. The game has a great feeling of weight. Enemies shatter like glass wonderfully, guns feel hefty, and leading shots is a decent challenge. And it shows what an awful shot I am. Punching lacks a bit of, well, punch, but managing to pull off an all-punch run is its own reward. Even death is enjoyable, since the game keeps it quick and throws you right back into the action. What it all leads to is a game that manages to bridge a gap, creating frenetic yet deliberate combat. On that note about death, however, I would not call Superhot difficult. It took me and my friends playing this game about an hour and a half each to clear the main story. Superhot has about 30 stages in the main campaign, and they're each also rather short. They're mini-scenarios, each taking a minute or two to beat, not counting retries. When you clear one, you get a replay showing what just transpired was actually just a matter of seconds. Some stages are not entirely predictable, and they have a tiny degree of randomization in enemy spawns and weapons carried, whilst others are completely static. You can treat both as combat puzzles to be solved, figuring out safe or optimal routes to win, and the game is naturally a lot easier if you play slowly, tapping to move everywhere. Or, you can treat the game as an action set-piece simulator, playing recklessly and hoping to win with as much flair as possible. I think both mindsets will get something out of this game. I lean more to the latter than the former, so I could be wrong. The stages are at least open-ended enough to account for both. I play recklessly, both because, well, I like to wing things, it leads to more enjoyable replays, and it makes victory more satisfying in my eyes. I like bouncing back. With the game taking less than 2 hours to clear, I imagine quite a few people are put off by the 18 quid asking price. And they're not wrong, but I do have to say I agree and disagree with them. I found the gameplay of Superhot more than made up for the amount of content, but I was still left wanting more. Even after clearing most of the challenge modes and playing a good deal on the endless mode. It isn't just in terms of the levels supplied. Whilst what is there is good, I want more playgrounds. And it's a bloody shame that the last stretch goal not reached was a level editor, which probably would have brought quite a few more people on board. I do also wish that the enemies would do a bit more. Why can't they pick up throwable items and chuck them at me? It would have shit me up to be checking my 6 and see a fucking telly flying at me. And hell, it'd give the baseball bat a unique role to fulfill. I mentioned explosives and such earlier, but a grenade or an impact explosive of some kind would gel really well. I mean, imagine cooking grenades in a game about time dilation, dodging shrapnel, baseball batting grenades back, or shooting them out of the air. On a more basic level, I did find myself missing a duck button. There are situations where it would have saved me, and it's not like it would be incredibly powerful, just another tool. It would still take time to crouch down and get back up. You'd be sacrificing mobility for presenting a smaller target, which I'm kind of already doing by leaning into shots. It needn't even be a held crouch, just a button to momentarily duck. The replay system is one of the greatest ideas the developers have had. Showing you how your slow motion shenanigans closer to how it looked in real time is so fascinating to watch back. And in some ways, it did affect how I played the game. I've already kind of mentioned, I wanted my replays to look nice. It didn't stop me from jumping all over the jobby like a fucking mental, but besides that, had to look good. I do wish the free cam mode had a better player model than this. And yeah, you can use the numpad keys to set the playback speed and so on. I really hope Killstagram picks up. I have a feeling it was intended for more than just replays, what with the planned level editor, but it's having a hard enough time right now with replays, and I'm gonna have to say, bear in mind, it is in beta. I mean, replays I have uploaded have been lost. Not completely though, I had to go digging around, but replays are saved locally. Here's the file path. I have seen complaints about lost videos, and I was going to make one until I found this out. The challenge mode did give the game a longer shelf life for me, but bear in mind that the challenges are just replays of older stages with new stipulations placed on the player. They're not additional levels. If you don't think that counts as an addition, then this will do nothing for you. In my case, it means I essentially beat the majority of Superhot about 5 times. These stages are what make learning the ins and outs of the game so much more rewarding, as those little tricks become more necessary than ever to survive. The challenge modes are unlocked sequentially, but not necessarily in order of difficulty. Some limit you to certain weapons, or make one way of playing the only viable path, more akin to gimmick runs, whilst others grant new abilities. Some examples. Katana only is the first challenge, and it's basically perfect. Still trickier than the main game since now dodging is more necessary than ever, and you are limited to however many katanas are on the map. You do start with one, so at least you brought one from home. And on stages with none spare, well, throw the one you've got sparingly, don't let it break. AD 2013 is based on the prototype. No melee weapons, no throwing weapons, and no slow-mo jumping. On the other hand, your punches kill in one hit, and unlike the prototype, weapons other than the pistol still exist. I'd consider AD 2013 the easy mode. Ghost unlocks Hot Switch from the first stage and limits you to one-hit kill punches. This is one of the more gimmicky challenges. Eventually you get to the bare hands challenge. It's exactly what it sounds like. Punch your way through Superhot. Frustrating, but fun. Bullet punching, baiting friendly fire, having to depend on dodging more than ever as I close the gap with enemies. It's a satisfying closer to the regular challenges. After that we get hard mode, and I mean yeah, time moves faster, bullets as well, enemies are stunned for far smaller intervals. But just having all of my options back means it doesn't hold a candle to bare hands. Not that I disliked it, just that it was kind of underwhelming. The levels are unchanged, there's no bigger enemy hordes or shotguns in earlier stages and so on. Impossible mode is even more disappointing. It's just hard mode, but every gun has only one bullet. Look, Superhot team, let me fix impossible mode with just one word. Hit scan. In the challenge menu you can find the speedrun modes. I haven't played much of them myself, I may go for the part-times at some point. I do appreciate that they're split into a speedrun mode based on the in-game clock versus a real-time clock, essentially making the difference between figuring out the most purely efficient way to beat a stage versus a mad scramble for time where you can't depend on your slow motion all that much. I did get a couple more hours out of the endless mode, but I'm still a little let down by the limited level selection. Some of these are just modified stages from the campaign mode. Good picks though, and there are also original stages in here. As the name suggests, it is a horde mode, surviving as long as you can with the only goal being to rack up a respectable body count. It's the gameplay of Superhot completely uncapped and unfiltered. Just have fun killing red guys using everything you've learned. And I did. Over and over again. More stages from the main campaign could definitely have been added with only minimal tweaks as well, as a good number of them already have an open arena-like design. God, I do keep coming back to that point, don't I? That there isn't enough Superhot? I mean, that's because that's the primary problem with this game. I was left wanting more. A game built around being slow motion being one of the shortest games recently made, well, it's an amusing sentiment, but it's not much of a selling point. Superhot is a really unique and fun blend of thoughtful turn-based gameplay mixed with skill-based combat. A small selection of weapons and short stages propped up by deeply physical combat with a surprisingly hidden amount of depth. And of course, absolutely incredible replays are the cherry on top. I can only hope that Superhot is expanded upon because I want more of it, and what is there still only feels like a showcase. Only this one I paid for. And while I do not regret that purchase at all, I can't shake the feeling that this is still an incomplete experiment. I get that sometimes less is more, but in this case, less just feels like less.